What is up, everyone? It's the guy here. Welcome to another episode of Themindhere. This is my bi-weekly podcast where I discuss about things that go on my YouTube channel, updates on my YouTube channel, discuss what I do behind the scenes, and talk about other things that come to mind. It also serves as a way to keep myself accountable and externally motivated to get my work done. If you're interested in how I make my music and videos, feel free to check out some previous episodes. And welcome to all of you who are here for the first time. If you like my content and want to see more, please consider subscribing. All right, so today's episode is going to be a little different today because we have a special guest on. If you're on YouTube, you can see that our setup is a little different. If you're listening, then you'll hear somebody a little different. But please welcome my friend, good old pal, Anish. Say hi, Anish.
What's up? Hi. Thanks for having me, Max.
Yeah, no, it's a pleasure to have you on too. So this is my first time having a guest on. So if I just knocked the microphone, if you guys, if things seem odd or if things aren't as quite as refined, it's part of the learning process of getting all this together. And this is the cool part about this is you get to see me learn putting all these things together. You get to see the messy process. So if this is your cup of tea, then you'll like it. Otherwise, it's a cringe fest, but it's okay. Either way, it's fun entertainment, right?
Yeah,
All
we'll
right.
see.
Yeah. So, Anish, why don't you talk a little bit about yourself since I guess I'm the only one that knows you right now. So.
True. Hey, my name's Anish. I have messy hair and a Winnie the Pooh clock in the back. I don't know if you can see that. Pretty cool. I am just like Max. I'm going to be in college next year as a freshman. I'm going into cognitive science, so that's pretty fun.
Nice.
Max and I actually know each other. We've known each other for a while, but we got to know each other most last year when we had music theory, which I'm sure you guys know about his music experience at this point, and psychology, which is, yeah. So we kind of know each other pretty well through those things.
Psychology.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
See the connections.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Well, so let's talk about a little bit about what you do then. What sort of stuff do you work on? Do you have any little side projects that you work on, or just cool tidbits about yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. I have been doing music for the better part of like 10 years at this point, playing piano for that length, and then more recently getting into the ukulele and singing. Last year was my first time doing choir. That was pretty fun.
He plays piano better than I do.
And beyond that, I do a lot of traditional art, colored pencil type stuff whenever I have the chance, just working on that. And then on the side, just whatever projects pop up, like writing projects, little creative things I can work on, covers, all that stuff.
Nice. Yeah, it's probably why we got close to, because our last year of high school, we decided to take some, or I'm assuming we decided to take some classes that we thought would be fun instead of just like the showing off to colleges. And
Yeah, exactly.
We had similar interests, so we had similar classes. We shared classes, so it's pretty nice how things work out. Cool. Alrighty, yeah, let's not turn this into an interview about you. So let's get into our normal structure. So how this normally works, I go into a little bit about channel progress. So since this is not just about me here, we can just talk a little bit about what we've been working on. We're working on currently, any future ideas, what we recently have been working on, talk a little bit about our thought processes about that.
Awesome.
So yeah, I guess I can go first, talk a little bit about it, so you can get a good idea. So my channel, I'll talk a little bit about the past 2 weeks, what I've been doing on my channel, and a little bit about the progress there. Since last episode, I said I was working on some music for my friend Joy. She's working on a game and she wanted some background music, so I've been working on that. And actually this week, I haven't made too much progress into that since there were a few things that sort of came up, and I'll talk a little bit about that. The one thing you'll see on my channel, the video I released pretty recently, is it sort of explains about it. So if you're interested, head on to my YouTube channel, go check it out. It's a music cover. It's quite interesting. So it's a music cover of a song, "You Raise Me Up" by Josh Gobran. I think that's the name. And yeah, so, but it's not a cover by me. So if you're interested in hearing me singing, yeah, that's not going to happen again. But yeah, but it's a cover by by a voice synth using the software Synthesizer 5. So I can talk a little bit about this in a future video too, but quickly what it is, a voice synth, it's like a normal synth where you mess around with the sound waves to get like different pitches and stuff. This one is you have vocal samples. These are right now, these how they work is they have actual human voice samples, but then you mess with it to make lyrics and make it sing. So it's like artificially singing. It's basically like it's like auto tune on steroids, basically, right? So, but it's yeah, that's what it's like. And I'm using the Eleanor Forte voice bank, so that's the voice you're hearing there. And I made this. This was I was going to do a little test of voice synthesizers and going to put it on, but I expedited the project and turned it into something else because during the past 2 weeks, one of my friends, Caden, he took his life. And to dedicate something to him, I decided to make that into a project and push it out as quickly as I can. So that got in the way of the progress that the planned progress that I was going to make. But yeah, that's something that came up, and that's what I've been working on for the good part of the first week. Now, the second week, I'm sort of ashamed to say, but there's no shame here. So after the little incident, all of that, a series of bad choices were made by me, and I was not able to focus for the second half, so I didn't make too much progress on there. So not too much progress on what I planned to make, but during the first part of that week, I pushed out something that is a new thing, is something I'm experimenting, but also just one of those things that I like to do is dedicate projects to things. So that got me motivated to do that. So that's the progress I've made on the channel so far. I really want to get the background music finished. It should be finished by the next episode because Joy requested it to be done by the end of August. School is starting for me, so it just makes logistic sense to get it done before then. So that's what I have planned. And I'm planning, once I get all that background music together, I'll master it into an album, and I'll release it whenever. If Joy says I need to wait, then I'll wait. Otherwise, I'll release it once everything is done and she gives me the okay. So that's progress I've made on the channel and what I've got going in the future.
Awesome. Listening to the "You Raise Me Up" cover is fascinating because, like I said, I'm not by no means a professional singer, but listening to the inflections and all of the things you're able to achieve with that cover, it's pretty spectacular. And for any of you who are watching right now who haven't seen it, I highly recommend it. Going into what you were talking about with the second week and not being able to get through as much work, I think I and everyone watching are all completely understand. It's extremely hard to jump right back into the swing of things right after your whole world is kind of shaken up by something like that. And on behalf of everyone, I'm so sorry you've been dealing with this, and proud of you for working through it and still pushing yourself even through such a hard time. Don't be ashamed to give yourself some time to recover afterwards.
Yeah, of course. Thank you, Anish. Yeah, and on the topic of the cover, so mostly I think I'd have to attribute this to the software. The software does a really good job of combining, of getting the voice to sound pretty smooth without the enunciation, I guess. It does a really good job of it because there are some other softwares and just previous versions too that didn't sound right and was robotic, and you could sort of hear that it's vocal samples put together, right? So I have to credit some of that to the software, since it does a really good job of that. But another thing is just that one thing I did was and this is something that I learned with art too, that I carried over a little bit. So a little tangent here, but so I've taken some art classes before by like an actual art teacher, and one thing that he would always remind us to do is to, when we're drawing, especially drawing real life things, is to actually look at the reference and not like create things in our heads and it's like, okay, this is how it's supposed to be, so I'll just draw it from my head. No, 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 no. If you're doing something realistic, you should look at the real thing for reference, right? So during this process, because I am no means an expert in this, the cover was a beginning in experimentation and a learning process. So I was listening to the cover, or the original song actually. So I was listening to the original song and making references to it to make sure that I got some of the inflections and to get all the little details to make it sound realistic, right? So just with anything actually that I do, like the covers, the transcriptions, all that, just referencing the original material to make sure that it sounds right and realistic. That's something that I always push, especially if you're doing something that is supposed to reflect reality in some way. Then yeah, referencing the original material is the go-to to learn and observationally gain the skills needed. So
Yeah, absolutely. Like with all art, I think transformative, even stylized art, you always take what real life does and exaggerate some aspect of that. And to properly emulate that, you always have to know exactly what you're looking at and what to exaggerate to make it pop more, to show what feelings you want to emphasize, stuff like that. So in my experience with drawing, I always tend to exaggerate facial features, eyes, because that's where you get the most emotions. And
those anime big eyes.
Well,
No,
yeah, I mean, that too, it brings out so much more emotion and it's more instantly recognizable, all that stuff. That's kind of the point of stylization. And I think that carries over into covers as well. Just like trying to play with what to emphasize more rhythmically, lyrically, you know, all that stuff. So art is really cool in that way because you take what you know and you just put your own personal spin on it to try and make something new.
For sure. Yep. All right. Anish, what do you have anything that you've been working on that you'd like to talk about?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a slower week just in that it's one of those times where it's like things are starting to slow down before picking back up once we get back to school, all that stuff.
Calm before the storm.
Yeah, exactly. So in that time, I think it's important to try and take time to just kind of de-stress, recuperate, reflect on how these last 6 months have been going since they've been so odd. So in that time, I think it's been just kind of messing around with drawings that I'm trying to complete, stuff like that. I had a project that I've been trying to work on, and I'm trying to play around with the style in it and shading and all that stuff. That's been pretty fun. I use mostly traditional work, which is a lot more time consuming than digital art, but I think a lot more fun. And I'm also a lot more used to it at this point because I've been doing it for so long. So what I have to do is I have to go in layer by layer, color by color, trying to play around with what works, what doesn't. And then if it doesn't work, go in with like a white colored pencil, colors over it, go back over with a different shade, stuff like that. So it takes a while, but the way it's going, I'm pretty proud of it so far, and I'm excited to see how it turns out at the end. Other than that, it's been a lot of messing around with piano stuff. It's my last year doing it before going to college, and I'm going to try to keep going with it during college, but it might be a little bit harder as most things are. So I'm just finishing up some of my last songs and trying to get the finishing touches on them before that whole chapter ends or partially ends. You know how it is.
Yeah.
Other than that, it's been a nice week just watching movies that I've been trying to catch up on since years ago. hanging out with my brothers, my family, all that stuff.
Yeah, it's always nice to relax a little bit and get ready, replenish yourself before you head back into another period of work.
Yeah,
Which school is
absolutely.
basically work, but you're like the priority is learning there. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's nice. So yeah, so you work with colored pencil as your and paper as your medium for art for the most time.
Yes. For the most part, that I also mess around a lot with just plain pencils. I think you've seen some of those things.
Yeah,
I've showed you those.
sketches.
Yeah, just sketches, little things like that. I think both mediums, even with their limitations, have the capacity to show off a lot of different emotions that maybe digital art doesn't necessarily capture. And also, it's just I've been so accustomed to that. It's just more natural for me to get into that stuff.
Yeah, of course. And with experience, I've had experience with the traditional formats, pencil, so just like sketching, not too much colored pencil actually, but I have done acrylic painting and even watercolor painting.
Yeah.
So all of that, they all have their characteristics, and all of that is quite different from the digital art because, well, for one, if you're painting with or using traditional medium, then well, your resolution is infinite, right? Because you're not restrained to the pixels. So in that, there's like that quality of it that you still can't really achieve on, I guess, digitally, just because of the pixels. But if you, I guess, at some point, once you make the digital art canvas big enough, there's not too much of a difference there. But that's one thing that I've noticed. And another quality that depends on who you are, if you see it as a plus or minus, is that on digital, there's always a control Z, there's always a back, right? And you can completely erase something versus in traditional medium like painting for sure, and colored pencil, even just pencil sketches, because sometimes you don't erase it all the way and there's still a little mark there, right? In digital, you can just remove the last step that you did. You can erase everything, and you can have like almost infinite layers and create these effects that you can't create on a traditional medium, which is cool in its own way. But I feel like it also, if you jump straight into digital, you might, I guess, miss the quality that in traditional art, when you mess up, there's no going back. So rather than scrapping like the entire painting, for example, do what Bob Ross says, because it's only a happy accident, right?
Exactly.
So then you just make it part of the character. So that's something that that I've learned, and that's also one thing that my art teacher pushed. Rather than when we were doing sketches, he would take away our erasers and say that just make it part of it, right? So it trained us to be more careful with our strokes, of course, but also just to incorporate our mistakes, make it part of it. Even if you're doing like drawing something and trying to make it realistic, if you make a little blemish in there, find a way to maybe exaggerate the realistic thing a little bit, like, oh, the apple has a little dent in there for some reason, right? Or yeah, if it ends up happening like that, or it could just be it's a tiny one and then you just draw a little around it. Either way, I feel like the aspect of removing and going backwards is good on one hand if you if it can like save your artwork from like something really bad that happened. But on the other hand, mistakes, like in art, mistakes can be a beautiful thing. So that's something that is a little different there. So maybe some cross-pollination would be a good combination, right? So learning both the digital form and the traditional form, getting a good idea of both, that might be something.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you were saying, with traditional art, I think getting into it has definitely pushed me to learn to improvise a lot more, because I don't think there's ever been a time where a piece has turned out perfectly. Like I've always made some mess up with like the inking or whatever. And I think those mess ups definitely helped me realize that things aren't going to be perfect. I just got to push myself to figure out how to fix it, how to work with it. and it always turns out okay. I always end up at least a little bit proud of what I've put out. And yeah, I think that's a great quality and something we all can learn from as we go forward. And of course, none of this is to say that digital art isn't valid, because it is amazing. You mentioned earlier you're working with Joy on her project, and we both know her. We've been seeing some of the stuff she's been putting out in preparation for the release, and the art she's able to do digitally for that is stunning. And I'm super excited to see the final product with your music and her work.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And it's almost like, so have you seen there's like Japanese, I think Japanese, don't quote me on that, but there's like there's ceramics where if they break it and it shatters, instead of what you normally do and just buy a new one and sweep it away, what they've done is they put the pieces back together and they use like a gold filling in there to fill it in and create and it just shows that like you made a mistake, right? Because you like it shattered for some reason, and that's probably not the intended that's not what was intended to happen, but by embracing the mistakes and putting it together, it can be almost as beautiful or more beautiful. So that's one thing that you could see in art, and that seriously should be reflected on in some other things too, in the way that mistakes can be more forgiving and could be a good thing sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Alrighty. Okay. So now that we've gone through a little bit of talking through our brains and spilling ourselves out, let's see. So afterwards, what I usually go into is a little AMA session where I pull a question off of my platforms, YouTube, all the other podcast platforms, questions anyone has. And recently it's just been Alfred Prose, but it's still nice to get these questions. So if any of you guys out there listening want to contribute to this, want to be part of this, and want to take the burden off of Alfred Prose a little bit, go ahead and go onto YouTube or any other podcast platforms I'm on, and leave a comment down below of any question that you would like to have answered in the next episode. And without further ado, let me pull it up and give a little screen sharing.
Awesome.
Sir, all right. There we go. All right, you can see this, right?
Yes.
All right. Okay. So this is his question. So Alfred Prose's question here is, how will most of our studies be? I guess if we're online, how will we feel about it, and how will we feel about meeting other people online? Also, what academic major do we plan to study?
Cool.
So I guess Anish, why don't you go first and answer some of this?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I mentioned earlier, I'm going into cognitive science, which, for those of you who don't know, it takes aspects of psychology, neuroscience, and even a little bit of philosophy and computer science, and kind of puts them all into one mess of a major and does stuff like that. Hold on 1 second. I think I'm getting a knock.
All right, it's all good. Let me switch this. It's all right. You can hear the messy process of this. And again, this is all part of a learning process that we have. So things like this, if they're not supposed to be shown, we get to see how things actually are and sort of realize our expectations a little bit, right? Not everything is like what we see on the TVs, on dedicated news channels where everything runs smoothly, right? There are hiccups sometimes. So it's okay. It's all part of an organic feeling to it. Welcome back, Anish.
Thank you. What's up? All right. Sorry for the interruption. Okay.
All good.
So where was I? Cognitive science. Right. Yeah. So yeah, like I said, cognitive science is that melding of all those things. Most of the study, at least for what I'm doing, sorry, I didn't catch, Max, what you were saying about what your studies are going to be like. But for me, what the plan kind of is they're going to just have lectures online at a set time, and then we attend those, we do our notes, we do all that stuff. And then, then we have like exams, tests, stuff like that throughout the week. We start a little bit later, so we don't have a completely concrete idea of like what we're doing just yet, but we'll figure out more of it as time goes on, stuff like that. And I'm feeling cautiously optimistic. I think it's one of those things where we really can't be sure about how exactly it's going to go. For one, it's college, so it's a completely new experience, different from high school, middle school, all that stuff. And it's online, so even they aren't really sure how it's going to look exactly. But I'm definitely looking forward to that experience, seeing what it's like, and being home for a little bit longer doesn't really bother me too much. Meeting other students, I'm interested to see how that works, how they plan to make it so that it's a more community-driven kind of thing. I think our class is unique in that it will all be within the same weird time where we've all been through the same weird experience, and I think we can all kind of connect through that. So I think that'll be a really cool dynamic to see going forward, and I'm excited to see where that leads.
Yeah, that sounds interesting. Yeah, and the one thing about going into this, especially in the online aspect, is that everyone coming in here is basically a freshman. Even the teachers, even like upperclassmen, right? Because it's all new to us, so we're all coming in fresh into this, and there will definitely be some things we probably don't anticipate, whatnot. But I guess that's the part of the process that brings us together too, is knowing that we're all in this together to learn how to get through the unique circumstances that we have, right? So yeah, that sounds interesting. Nice. So you're going to be making propaganda? No, I'm kidding. Cognitive sciences. Anyways, all right. So what I plan to study, so I plan to go into mechanical engineering. And this is because I've always had an interest in tinkering around, making things. So engineering was my go-to, especially since I got interested in Elon Musk's endeavors. So space-related things, those were always cool to me. But I decided to not pursue aerospace engineering because it's kind of specific, and diving into something that specific in college, I feel like might not help me in the future if I want to go on to other things that aren't space related. So mechanical engineering, it's used like everywhere, right? So I can apply it in automotive areas, energy, wherever it is. Mechanical engineering is a very versatile major to go into. So that's why I wanted to go into mechanical engineering. And just like other studies, I guess for minors, I'm considering econ and computer science. Those just because, well, computer science more on the practical side of it, since everything's going to be computer based in our world. So it helps to have some knowledge of programming and how computers work, because everything will be based off of that. So it's a very marketable skill and very useful one. And for econ, that's also one of those classes that I took in high school that I just sort of took because it was like everyone did it. It was a requirement or something like that. But I actually found it pretty interesting, and I liked the game theory aspect of it, the how everything in the system works, pulls together. So I'm more of a macro person, if you couldn't tell, but just how things are managed in economy and how that applies elsewhere. I feel like that would be something that's a good enrichment into my studies. So that's why I decided to do that as a minor as well. If those minors pan out, if I have enough credits, we'll see, but those are my plans for it right now. And I'm also going to be online, so the experience, similar to how Anish said, it's going to be, for me actually, it's going to be more asynchronous, which means that it'll be like pre-recorded. There won't be a scheduled meeting time to go to for classes, which may or may not be a good thing for me, because my school that I'm going to is in Eastern time and I'm in Pacific time. So their classes will be 3 hours earlier in time than mine. So a 10 o'clock class that starts at 10 o'clock would be 7 o'clock for me. So that's a big oof there. So that's probably a good thing that I'm going asynchronous. But either way, it's just interesting. It'll be interesting to see how the format pans out. And I get to also, compare it with how high school, my old high school is going to be handling it, because my brother is is in high school right now. So I get to see how their format is and just see how everyone's going to handle the education aspect of it going forward. Did I answer everything? I believe so. About meeting other people. So on classes or during classes, that might be a bit tough. But for me, I've been meeting other people through other social media. We've had, for my college, we've had a get together for our class on Facebook. We also have Discord servers dedicated to just the class of 2024, honors and engineering group. And just through Discord and all of that, we've had some connections. I've made quite a few friends already without even stepping foot on campus. So that's, I guess, one of the aspects of the digital age where you don't really have to be in physical contact with someone, but you can still make friends. So the communication, the connections, and the friendships, they will be different for sure. But I have strong hopes that there will still be connections that pull us together through these other means, even if it's not through classes.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Have you already got your schedule figured out, Anish? And I can stop.
Yes. Cool. Yes, we have our schedules figured out. Everything's moved to online, so there's no worries there about having some in person, some online, all that stuff. It's pretty solid. I'm West Coast College anyway, so it's not too much of a difference for me with the time. So I don't have the same issue as you do. But yeah, everything seems to be worked out. Now I just have to play the waiting game till classes begin, and I can jump into this weird experience.
Likewise, but, yeah. So yeah, well, that's gonna pretty much wrap it up. And this went quite a bit longer than my other episodes, but that's usually a pattern with, I guess, podcasts that bring on the guests. It goes longer, and it's to be expected to, because on the one hand, I'm probably not going to do too much editing with this. It's all going to come out raw for you guys. But also, it's just it's nice to get, I guess, the full aspect of listening to us talk about things. And the one thing that I found interesting with podcasts that I liked was when they brought on a guest, you can sort of hear how each person thought just based off of the conversations. And that was pretty cool to me. So if you guys enjoy this, then if you want to, please leave a like. Otherwise, then Anish, do you have anything you want to plug or anything you want to shamelessly self-promote?
Yeah, promotion. Go check out Max's cover. Of course, I got to plug that. And otherwise, no, support the U.S. Postal Service. That's really all I have to say. Thanks for having me, Max. This has been a ton of fun. I super enjoyed hearing everything that you've been working on and everything that you're going to be working on in the future.
Yeah, no, this was really fun for me too. I'll probably, if I have time since school comes up, we'll see, but hopefully I can get some other people on and do this, because this was really fun for me and I got to learn a lot of new things. So yeah, hey, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, well, that's the end of this episode, guys. Be sure to support, I guess it's just me because you didn't plug anything, but and well, in that case, yeah, let's wrap it up and I'll see you in the next episode. See ya.